Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching Primetime Asia on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines coming out of the region this hour. India stands to benefit as Trump drops tariffs on over 200 food products, easing pressure on exporters hit harder than EU rivals. Coffee, tea and spices are among the exempted items, though analysts warn the upside may be limited. Now, following this, India and the United States are close to striking a trade deal which will cut tariffs and enable India to import US soybeans and corn. The agreement comes as New Delhi pressures farmers while Washington seeks access to its largest market. Bangladesh has increased security measures ahead of a special tribunal verdict against former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Masses are expected to gather as the government weather increasing pressure over questions of justice and accountability. Pakistan's Minister for Justice says recent constitutional amendments are necessary after two top judges resigned in protests. Critics warn the move could undermine institutions and democracy, while the government denies any political motive. Japan's finance minister says the next economic stimulus package will exceed $110 billion to counter inflation and meet strategic needs. The plan is expected to be finalized soon as Tokyo shifts its focus towards growth and geopolitics. Afghanistan is reorienting trade routes through Iran and Central Asia amid tensions with Pakistan and a push for economic diversification. The move signals a strategic shift as Kabul seeks to break dependence on traditional partners. China says its Coast Guard has patrolled waters around the Japan-controlled Senkaku Islands amid soaring tensions over Tokyo's Taiwan comments. Beijing insists the islands are its territory as tensions between Tokyo and Beijing rise. Israeli Minister Gideon Saar insists Israel will not agree to the establishment of what he calls a Palestinian terror state. The IDF says its forces shot and killed a Palestinian man during an overnight clash in the West Bank. Now, those are the headlines for the hour, and the United States and India are set to announce a bilateral trade deal by the end of November. The agreement follows Washington's decision to withdraw penalty tariffs. India will open its markets to duty-free imports of soybeans, corn and select dairy products. Both sides are finalizing reciprocal tariff rates on industrial and agricultural goods. Two ranges are under discussion, between 12 and 15% or 15 to 19%. Most issues on duty-free product lists have been now settled, and India will import non-GMO soybean directly from US producers. Corn imports will be used for ethanol production. Dairy products will be allowed under strict safeguards, but liquid milk is excluded. Now, earlier this week, President Donald Trump says the US is close to a fair trade deal with India, but the agreement is expected to expand economic and security ties, boost US energy exports and promote investments in key sectors. Okay, now joining us to discuss these updates is Jayjit Bhattacharya. He's an economist and finance expert. He joins us live from the Indian capital of New Delhi. Thank you very much, Jayjit, for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure to have you. Can you tell us a bit more about these developments when it comes to US-India trade and the leverage that both sides holds in these matters, particularly when it comes to agriculture?
You know, as most people know and your viewers know that the last time the deal did not come through is because the US insisted that there should be some leeway being given from in terms of imports of agricultural produces from US and by India and import of dairy products by India. Now, those were certainly red lines. Subsequently, in the last 7 to 8 months, what has happened is we have heard from the US president that the deal that's coming through with India is something innovative. And I think we can see some of the contours of that innovation. So, although corn is perhaps going to be allowed to be imported duty free from US to India, but it will not be used for human consumption. It will be used for producing alcohol, which will then gets mixed with petroleum, and therefore it'll be used as a fuel. And I think similarly there will be a very different kind of innovation and the structure of the deal that will happen between US and India. And I think it'll be interesting to note how the final deal comes out to be.
Yes, and two points are under discussion. Two tariff rates between that of 12 and 15% for certain exports and some, and 15 to 19 for others. Now, comparatively, given the staggering heights of the tariffs that have been imposed on India previously, is this a win?
Yes, no, certainly it's definitely a win because the current deal with the US is over 50% of tariff, and that has completely upended India's exports. And therefore, if you're able to get a deal which is around 15%, it will be one of the best deals with the US. And if you can get it at 12%, that will be the best deal besides the UK deal. The UK got the deal at 10% with the US. Europe has got it at 15%. So if India gets it at 12%, it'll definitely be a game changer for India. It'll also be a game changer for the Quad structure, the Indo-Pacific area, because India is a bulwark, and if India gets a deal at 12%, it strengthens the geoeconomics of India, and therefore the ability for the free world in that sense, which is a term used for the set of countries which have democratically elected leaders, they will gain in the geopolitics of the Indo-Pacific, with the boost coming because of the geoeconomics that get laid out based on the India-US deal, if it finally comes through. The whole proposition is that there will be a 12% deal, or at least we'll get a deal around 15%. But if that does not happen, then it's a big question mark as to why India opened up the doors for agriculture and dairy. India should be getting something which is quite significant because India has let go of a very major red line. And please do keep in mind that all subsequent deals that India gets into other economies will also ask for the same kind of concession that US has asked for. So it's a very big deal from the Indian side, and therefore what it gets in return should also be significant for India.
Yes, Jayjit Bhattacharya, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully speak to you again when we get the final details of that trade deal. We move on now and stay in South Asia, and a State Minister for Interior, Talal Chaudhry, doubled down on Parliament's right to amend Pakistan's constitution today, dismissing the resignations of two senior Supreme Court judges as political. His remarks come as the country faces a rapidly escalating judicial crisis triggered by the passage of the 27th constitutional amendment. The amendment, signed by President Asif Ali Zardari, grants lifetime immunity to the President and Army Chief, alleviates General Asim Munir to Chief of Defence Forces with an extended tenure until the year of 2030. It also creates a federal constitutional court to handle constitutional cases. Critics say this undermines the Supreme Court's authority and increases military influence. Supreme Court judges Mansoor Ali Shah and Attar Minala resigned first, calling the amendment a grave assault on the Constitution. Yesterday, on the 15th, Lahore High Court Justice Shams Mahmood Misra also resigned, becoming the first High Court judge to do so since the law's passage. Chaudhry insisted Parliament should look like a parliament and defended the reforms as measures that bring stability. Meanwhile, opposition parties, lawyers, bodies and civil society warn the FCC allows the executive to shape constitutional rulings through direct control of appointments. Courts in Karachi have remained closed for 3 days as protests grow in Pakistan. We're now joined by Ambassador Ashok Sajanha. He's a former Indian diplomat and he joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. 3 senior judges here have now resigned, calling the 27th Amendment a grave assault on the Constitution. Do these resignations indicate a full constitutional breakdown?
Yes, thank you very much for having me on the show. You're very right. I think it is the manner in which it has been done on both counts. One is in terms of giving so much of power and authority to the army chief. He's been, a new position has been created for him. He's been made the chief of defense forces. He will oversee all the 3 branches, that is the armed forces, that is Air Force, Navy. He will also have his finger on the nuclear button. So all the power comes to him, and he can, and knowing his avowed anti-Indian stance, this poses a grave risk for the region. Also, his term has been extended up to 2030. It would have gone on from 22 when he was appointed till 27. And possibly he could have been appointed once more, but now it's been extended to 2030. And he can seek another term up to 2035. And he cannot be, there cannot be any charges against him. His immunity has been given for life. So he has really been made absolutely supreme as far as the Pakistan Defense Forces. Earlier, it was the defense forces had a control over the government, but now, of course, all that sham has also been removed, and he has become the most powerful person. And on the other hand, the courts, their remit has been reduced very significantly. Their power has been diluted. They cannot hear, the Supreme Court cannot hear constitutional cases. A new constitutional court has been, the federal court has been established. So that has diluted the authority also of the Supreme Court. So all in all, it is going towards military dictatorship and an autocracy.
Yes, and Ambassador, just briefly as we're running out of time, if the judges themselves say the judiciary is being dismantled, how can the government continue to say that everything is stable?
Yes, the government will, because they have completely decimated the power and authority of the judiciary, and they say that the judges have been interfering in the affairs in political matters, and they have not been allowing the government to work. So now government has completely, as far as the authority of the judges and the courts, that has been reduced. So this is all that the government can say, that this move has been made from the parliament, and the judges are appointed by the government, so they will do whatever the government requires them to do. But government can continue to say that, that it is not in any way harmed the interest of these judges and the courts, but that is not factually accurate.
Yes, Ambassador Ashok Sajanha, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. Pleasure to get your insight on these issues. We now move west, and security agencies in Bangladesh are on high alert ahead of a special tribunal verdict against deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. The International Crimes Tribunal will deliver its decision tomorrow. Hasina, along with her Home Minister and former police chief, is accused of crimes against humanity during last year's anti-government protests. Chief Prosecutor Mohammed Tajul Islam has demanded the death penalty. calling Hasina the mastermind of the violence. Hasina and Kamal were tried in absentia, while al-Numan appeared as a state witness. The tribunal heard testimony from 54 witnesses over 28 working days, and the charges include murder, torture, and ordering deadly crackdowns against protesters during the July uprising that toppled her government in August of 2024. Hasina fled to India since, after her unrest. She and her supporters say the charges are politically motivated. International lawyers have raised concerns about the fairness of the trial, calling it a politically charged process under an unelected interim government. The tribunal was originally set up in 1971 to try war collaborators, but its mandate was expanded to include leaders of the former government. Bangladesh remains tense as the country awaits Monday's ruling. Joining us now is Shoaib Chowdhury. He's the editor of the Blitz and he's located in Dhaka. Thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. Many international lawyers say that this trial is politically motivated due to lack of due process. Do you believe Sheikh Hasina can receive a fair verdict here?
Thank you very much. As you have mentioned that many international observers are saying that the cases and charges are politically motivated. We need to know that the chief prosecutor of the ICT is a member of Jamaat Islami, and most of the prosecutors, they are also members of the same political party. At the same time, it is important to mention that currently Sheikh Hasina faces 583 cases, out of which 324 are murder cases. And there are also 27 cases pending with the ICT. So this is what is going to be what the case where they are pronouncing verdict tomorrow, expected to pronounce verdict tomorrow, is one of those 27 cases. But of course, there are no solid evidences, nothing, no witnesses. These are all based on imaginary stories or concocted documents. So yes, you can say this is not only a politically motivated case, but we can clearly say it's a very much a first trial.
Okay, Shoaib, according to the Health Subcommittee of the Anti-Discrimination Students Movement, the total number of deaths last year during these protests is estimated to be about 1,580. So hundreds were killed last year in the uprising. Regardless of politics, does the state bear responsibility for such a high death toll under Hasina's watch?
Thank you for asking this question. As you mentioned, the number of cases, marked deaths are 1,400 plus. So it is also important to mention here that a very significant number of deaths took place from August 5th to August 15th, when Sheikh Hasina was already in India. And what Yunus has done, Muhammad Yunus, he has given indemnity to all the charges of murder, including murder of police and others, which took place from August 5th to August 15th. So in one hand, he is giving impunity, indemnity to the killers, and on the other hand, he is trying to only pursue the cases which goes against Sheikh Hasina. So it is also a gross violation of human rights, and also it's a gross violation of international rights. And also one more important point, that immediately after assuming the office on August 7th last year, Yunus publicly declared that he will take up the case against Sheikh Hasina with the International Criminal Court, ICC. But because they lack any ingredient for bringing this case to ICC, they immediately switched for taking it to ICT. And as you mentioned correctly, that actually ICT was formulated in 1973 for trying the Pakistani collaborators. And now they have, through a decree issued by Yunus, they have also turn this court against Sheikh Hasina. But again, Yunus regime itself is illegal because it lacks any legal ground in Bangladesh constitution. Under Bangladesh constitution, there is no provision of any interim government. So interim government itself is illegal, and the formation or giving ICT the right to try Sheikh Hasina itself is questionable. So altogether, it's a very parse trial.
Shoaib Chowdhury, thank you very much for joining us. We eagerly await that verdict tomorrow. We'll bring it all to you here on NewsX World. We now move on, and Afghanistan is shifting its trade away from Pakistan after last month's border clashes strained relations. According to reports, Kabul has increased commerce through Iran and Central Asian routes using Iran's Chad-Baha region port to avoid repeated border closures and political pressure from Islamabad. The Trade Ministry says Afghanistan recorded around $1.6 billion in trade with Iran over 6 months, compared to $1.1 billion with Pakistan. Officials say diversifying trade corridors is essential for stable imports and exports. And the Afghan Chamber of Commerce adds that lower transport costs through Iran and Central Asia could boost regional trade, urging long-term agreements and reduced tariffs. Tensions, however, do remain high after recent clashes and failed talks between Kabul and Islamabad. Let's turn to East Asia next, and according to recent surveys, Japan is divided over collective self-defense if China attacks Taiwan. The poll was found 48.8% in favor and 44.2% against, while 60.4% support Prime Minister Takaichi's plan to boost defense spending. Takaichi's recent remarks has warned that a Chinese attack on Taiwan could become a survival-threatening situation, potentially prompting a Japanese military response. The comments drew sharp criticism from Beijing, which also advised its citizens, urging against travelling to Japan. Takaichi aims to raise defence spending to 2% of GDP this fiscal year, ahead of the original 2027 target. Her cabinet approval rating stands at 69.9%, up from 5 points last month, Kyodo reported. Now joining us is Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at the Hudson Institute, and he joins us live from Tokyo to discuss this further. Dr. Nagao, thank you for joining us, firstly. Japan is split on a 50-50, according to this poll anyway, on collective self-defense if China does indeed attack Taiwan. What does this decision tell you about how prepared, or of course unprepared, Japanese society is for a potential regional war?
Indeed, this number is indicating Japan has changed so drastically. Because view from the other country, this is divided, you can see, but this is not indeed true. Because in the survey, when Russia invaded Ukraine, there is a survey, when the invasion has happened against Japan directly, what is your attitude? Only 30%, less than 30% said we will fight. And more than 70% said we will not fight against the invasion against Japan. That was Japan's pacifism for a long time. That has happened in 2022. But now the survey said nearly half of the people support Japan, support the U.S. operation against Japan, against China when China invaded Taiwan. So this is indeed, the number has very drastically improved compared to the traditional Japan's pacifism. And indeed, still the problem is the shortage of number of the soldiers in the Japan self-defense force. Last year, Japanese self-defense force only got 51% of the total vacant Japanese self-defense got to fulfill the only half, indeed. So another half is vacant now, still vacant. So total number vacant is 23,000 soldiers they are lacking. So such kind of situation is very bad for Japan self-defense force. But compared with the past, more people joining, approving Japan's participation in the war against China or resist against invasion. So that is completely different and improving drastically. And approving rate of the Takaichi government before this Taiwan remark has happened and after the Taiwan remark has happened, indeed improved nearly 7%. Now it reached nearly 70%.
Yes.
So this means that Japanese has changed and start to support PM Takaichi. And when China invade, more people support Japan's participation. That is the situation this number indicates, even if the 48% is still less than half.
Yeah, and Dr. Nagao, Takaichi wants defense spending to raise to 2% GDP this year, 2 years earlier than planned, with around 60% of the Japanese public supporting increased defense spending. Is this an urgent necessity for Japan's deterrence, or just a dramatic political statement from the Japanese Prime Minister?
Of course urgent, because China spends 6 times higher defense spending than Japan. In the past, this is the same, but now 6 times higher because China's rapid military modernization based rapid increase of the budget. So that's why Japan should catch up, but Japan's move was slow, but now finally Japan start to increase. That is good news. And at the same time, we should not forget, Ministry of Defense or Self-Defense Force has already conducted the coordinated move with the US and Philippines or Taiwan indeed. So in the exercises, it has happened. Of course, officially, they try to adjust law, and so this is not illegal exercises. But at the same time, real scenario is more practical, and Japan's current law do not adjust real war situation. That's why they did not say anything about it, but at the same time, their scenario is based on real war. So that's why there is a possibility. We should not say, we cannot say perfectly, but at the same time, Japan really preparing the crisis, and even in the self-defense force level, indeed prepared well, coordinated well the US, Philippines, something like that. So public opinion is one thing. Real preparation is another thing. So real preparation is really made, we should think.
Yes, Dr. Satoru Nagao, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's always a pleasure to get your insight. We now move on, and more news from Japan, and Finance Minister Satsuki Katayama has said that Japan's economic stimulus package will exceed 17 trillion yen after meeting with Prime Minister Sakai Takaichi. Since taking office in October, Takaichi has promised a large spending package to ease rising living costs and boost investment in growth sectors like artificial intelligence and semiconductors. The government is expected to finalise the package with cabinet approval on November the 21st. And that's a wrap on Primetime Asia. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news.